What's up, everybody? It's your boy Meme here. For breakfast, I had some bacon and some eggs and some hash browns and some toast that my mom made, and that was very tasty. For lunch, I'm not really having anything, and for dinner, I'm going to be having some leftover chili. I'm having some black tea right now. Nothing's really going on. I woke up at 5:40 this morning, which has been my pretty consistent sleeping schedule, which I don't really enjoy that much. I wish I went to bed a little earlier and I woke up a little earlier because I used to. But you know, tonight I'm planning on going to bed at 8, which is when I used to go to bed, and hopefully that works out. And then, yeah, so I woke up at 5:40 this morning and I walked 4 miles on the treadmill. Then I had this wonderful breakfast that my mom made. It was very tasty. My hair looks like kind of particularly bad. I didn't do my hair today. Like, typically because I've been going outside a lot, whether it be going to work or whatever, you know, but when I don't go outside or when I'm really going to be outside in the day, I don't really do my hair, and that usually results in it looking like kind of cool and like kind of a sort of unkempt way, you know, because my hair, I still took a shower that morning, it's just that I didn't like blow dry my hair and like brush it a certain way, you know, but right now it just doesn't, I don't know, it's just not doing what I want it to do and doing what I have expected it to do in the past. So maybe it's saying my hair is getting too long or whatever, but I don't know. Anyway, then after that, I went to the passport place. My mom, it was actually kind of irritating because, we have a wonderful public transport system, and so I usually just take the bus somewhere if it's pretty far away, slash train, because, you know, we also have trains here. Or if it's under like an hour walk, a lot of the time I just walk there, because I'm really good at walking. It's not like an issue. Like I don't really get winded or anything, so, and you know, I'm very, very lucky in that I don't get winded and stuff, but it's super easy for me to walk somewhere because I could just listen to something, like I could just listen to a YouTube video and walk somewhere, and it's super easy. I really should get a car. You know, it's a little degenerative that I'm 19 years old and I don't even have a driver's license. That's a little crazy. But if it's any consolation, you know, my sister's 27 and she doesn't have a driver's license, so, you know, maybe it's not as strange as I think it is. And also, I believe statistically, people around my age are getting their driver's licenses at a relatively older age. But even then, like, dude, I'm gonna be done with college in a year. Like, what you know, because I'm not doing a 4-year thing. I'm gonna be done with college in a year. I really should just get like my driver's license. I really should get a car. Yeah, okay. I gotta work on that. I think if I do the driver's test, I'll pass, but it's one of those where, like, I think I know enough about driving to where I'll pass the driver's test, like I've studied it enough, but it's one of those where I just personally don't feel comfortable driving on a road where it's like, you know, like, I don't know, right? It's like, I don't feel comfortable driving on a, because you have to get a certain percentage, right? But I don't feel comfortable driving on a road without knowing 100% of the rules. And frankly, the rules I don't know, probably, I don't know for a good reason. They're probably not as important as other rules. But, you know, it's just one of those. Like, I don't know. And I bet a lot of driving skill comes from driving experience. Like, I'm pretty sure nobody's, like, good at driving when they start driving, you know. But it's also just one of those. Like, it's also scary, right? It's just scary. It's just a scary thing to do. God, I haven't even been on a highway or anything. What? I haven't driven a car. What? Anyway. So... But yeah, I haven't, like, in my, you know, theoretically, if I were to have driven a car in the past, I haven't even, like, been on a highway or anything, which seems to be, like, you know, the most productive driving time being on a highway, right? And I haven't even been on a highway, so it's just one of those where it's, like, it's just silly. Like, I feel like I'm just being, like, not, my driving status and my ability to drive status and my car status is probably one of the most silly, most illogical things in my life. It's just very silly. Speaking of silly, illogical things, I'm gonna check something really quick. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so I think my driving status is one of the more silly, more illogical things that about how I run my life, but you know, it's just one of those. But anyway, you know, despite me walking a lot of places and despite me, you know, taking the bus the vast majority of the time, my mom still offers to drive me places sometimes because she's just a very nice person. And a lot of, like, 90% of the time I'm like, no, because I was already, the thing is that, like, a lot of the time, if I'm going to be walking somewhere someday or I'm going to be taking the bus somewhere someday, I've usually factored that into my exercise that morning. So, like, say I know I'm going to be doing a pretty long walk, that morning I might only walk 1 mile or I might only walk 2 miles on the treadmill. And so by the time my mom offers to drive me that day, I've already, like, you know, if I ask her to drive me, if I take her up on her offer and she drives me, then when I get home I'll have to, like, exercise more because I have to close my move ring every day because I have almost a 300-day streak on my move ring, which I'm happy about, which is there's just Apple's version of a daily calorie burning goal. But anyway, yeah, so last night my mom had, and so this is maybe a strange thing to ask, but I was like, you know, in the future, if you're going to offer to drive me somewhere, be sure to ask me, like, the day before or a couple days before, because usually my exercise depends on how much it depends on whether or not I'm going to be getting there via car, right? And so, luckily last night, for this thing I'm going to talk about, last night my mom had I'm so sorry, there's something up with my nose. Last night my mom had asked me, hey, do you want me to drive you there? Because it's, like, for real, it's like 6 minutes away by car. If I walk there, it's like 39 minutes, right? I was like, you know, actually, yes, you know, thank you for offering to drive me. I will take you up on your offer. Please do drive me. And she was like, okay, I will. But it seems like, so after I had eaten breakfast, which, again, shout out to my mom, which was wonderfully cooked by my mom. And also shout out to, you know, I've been shouting out my mom a little too much. Also shout out to my dad, because for dinner today, I'm going to have some leftover chili, and he makes some crazy chili. It's crazy. Like, he's a pro, and he makes it crazy, and it's, like, really, really good. So, you know, it's one of those where, you know, don't get the impression that, you know, my dad doesn't do all these incredible things. So shout out to my dad too. But anyway, so after my mom had cooked this wonderful breakfast, I was under the I learned that all three of us were under, like, different impressions of what my mom was going to be doing. So what I thought my mom was going to do was, and the thing is that today my parents had, because my mom had called out of work for today. Because she was going to have a doctor's appointment today, but the doctor's appointment was canceled, but she never canceled, like, the day off of work. So it was just going to be a free day on Wednesday. Like, she just wasn't going to be working on Wednesday. You know, which is cool. I would do the same thing, right? Especially if, like, you know, like, we're very lucky in that we're not really living paycheck to paycheck. So it's fine if, you know, one of my parents doesn't work for one day, you know, because, you know, am I being too TMI here? My mom works out hourly, so it would affect. But anyway, you know. So the thing was that my parents had been planning to just go out and, like, do things today, just, like, go to a couple, like, restaurants and, like, go to places and, like, do things today, right? With their day off. And they also have a day off on Saturdays and Sundays, but Saturdays and Sundays they're also doing, like, chores, like, it's a lot of very just, like, sort of weekly chores, yeah, like going to the store and such, and it's like, you know, you have less free time on the weekend than you would think, like, on paper, you know, because you're doing stuff on the weekend. But so they had, like, a completely, like, a blank day, and so so it was very nice that my mom was offering to drive me, because that could have interfered with, like, their plans, which were going to start pretty early. But anyway, so after my mom had cooked this wonderful breakfast, I had realized that we all three were under different assumptions of what my mom was going to be doing. So what I thought my mom was going to be doing was, I thought that she was going to drive me to the passport place, and I had all of my stuff, like, I had an envelope. I think it's okay to say this now, because everything's, like, back in where it should be, but I was going to the passport place with an envelope, and inside of this envelope I had my social security card, I had my birth certificate, I had, like, 3 blank checks in my name, in case I had to, like, write a check. I had my old passport, I had like, passport photos. I had my DS11 form, which had, you know, my SSN, but also my parents' SSN. Like, it was crazy, right? I had, like, all of this very, you know, personal information on me. So I was under the impression that my mom was going to drive me there, And you know, I would show up, I'd have everything ready, so I just give it to them, you know, and they'd maybe ask me a couple questions. It would take 5 minutes, and then I'd just get back in the car. My mom would drive me home, and then my parents would just go and do their thing. So that's what I thought we were going to be doing. But what my mom thought was what they were going to be doing is the exact same thing, but my dad would be there. So she just thought my dad would also be in the car. I don't really know why, but that's what my mom was under the impression of what was going to happen. But what my dad thought was going to happen was that mom and dad were going to be in the car, and they were going to drive me there, but then they were just going to drop me off, and then I was going to walk home. And so that sucks. I don't really, like, all three of those plans I'm totally okay with, but what had bothered me is I have a sort of a thing in my brain, and that results in me, like, it causes me a lot of distress when plans suddenly change, especially right before they occur. And that's what I mean when I talk about, you know, like, tell me the day before, you know, because that's usually my my window, you know, where things can change, and it wouldn't be too much of a change. Like, I have a lot of my stuff, like, timed, like things make sense if things in the past are timed, and it you know, and it usually works out. Like, everything kind of works out, and everything's sort of formed in a way to where this kind of works, and, you know, everybody understands how everybody's schedule works, and it's super normal, right? But it just sucked that we just all three happened to, like, have different perceptions of how this you know, sort of thing was gonna go. So you know, and I was totally okay with this plan, but it had turned out that my dad's plan sort of won in this scenario, because he was going to be driving the car, and usually, like, he drives, you know, usually, and so you know, it just so happened that my dad's plan was like I'm gonna squeeze the tea out of my tea bag. Do British people do this? I think this is, like, not a kosher thing to do. My 4 tea bags, that is. Really good idea, Leo, to do that directly over your fabric mouse pad. That's why it looks so grody. You know, the reason why I treat this mouse pad so badly is because I got it for free. I got it for free with this desk. Like, it came with the desk because it's the shape of my desk, and it, you know, it looks, for real, gross. Like, my mom used to do this, and she still does this, and I didn't used to get why, but now I do. Like, whenever I would take a photo, she's like, oh, that background looks so ugly. And I never understood it, because, like, just look at the subject of the photo. Like, if you're looking at the subject of the photo, like you're not taking, the intention of taking the photo is not to take a photo of the background. Like, who cares what's in the background if the subject of the photo is obvious? Like, people are gonna look at the subject. But I started doing this thing where I would see people would send me photos, I'd, like, I'd, like, look in the background. Like, that's just sort of a thing that, like, sort of entertains my sort of human brain, right? And so now I realize why my mom does this, and so whenever I'm taking a photo, I always try to make sure the background looks at least a little presentable, right? I'm okay with it if there's a little dust in the background, but, like, you know, I don't want to have it be looking like I'm a hoarder in the background, because it's like a bad angle, right? And so, like, whenever I'm doing something on my mouse pad, I always try to do it on, like, the black section, because as you can tell, it gets green up here, and it looks, you know, it's actually not that bad. Like, I'm not like Asmongold level or anything, you know, no offense to Asmongold, right? But it's, like, not that gross. Like, it's, like, a little, like, you know, it's, like, a little dirty, but, like, it sucks because that's supposed to be green, and there's some stuff on there that's not green, you know. And that, anyway, so what was I talking about? Yeah, so it ended up working out to where they would drive me to the place, and then I would just walk home, which I was okay with. But it just kind of sucked because the plan had changed, and that, you know, just wasn't what I was expecting. But, you know, yeah. So it worked out. It worked out pretty well. I'd done one thing wrong on the form. The way it had to work. I don't know if this is, like, bad information to talk about publicly. I think it's okay, because it's not like you shouldn't say what, like, your bank account number is, but you can talk about how you have a bank account, you know, like, that's not, like, that's just a metaphor, you know, but a rhetorical metaphor. I'm gonna make sure all of the doors in our house are locked. One moment. Okay, I'm back. I have this thing where when I'm home alone, I get a little paranoid. But it's fair that I was paranoid because our back door wasn't locked, which is the door to our deck. Like, they have to go around our house to be able to walk in, but it wasn't locked, so I locked that door, and that's helpful. You know, it's a little less sunny outside, so this exposure. The exposure in this video is a little darker than I'd like it to be now. Typically my videos are short enough to where the weather doesn't change outside, but now it's changed a little bit, and so it's a little darker, but anyway. So what? So yeah, I started, and anyway, so I'd filled out one thing on the form wrong, and it was the fact that I filled out that I've never had a passport before. And the reason, and I did have a passport, but like when I wrote that in the form, my old passport was right next to me, right? But I was thinking to myself, like, and I looked this up, and I got this impression that there's like a big difference between renewing or doing any passport related things when you're an adult versus doing any passport related things when you're under 18. And I'm 19 now, but the last time I got a passport when I was like 14, I think. They're 13 or 14. And so, that had resulted in, like, this, what am I saying? And so, when it said in my DS11 form, it was like, hey, have you ever had a passport before? I was thinking to myself, like, well, I've never had a passport as an adult, like, I've never had an adult passport. And adult passports are, like, a little different than non-adult passports, and so I looked it up, and I was like, should you say you filled in a passport before, like how should you answer this question if you got it when you were under 18? And there was one source that was like, no, you should say you've never had a passport before. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do that. And it turned out okay, because all I had to do was just crop out my answer and then fill in the information for, like, if yes, and then fill this out, and I just had to fill that out, and it took 2 seconds, but that was the only issue. You know, yeah, so it worked out in, like, I have this. Can I show this? Yes. I have this piece of paper which tells me when I'm gonna get my passport, which is in like 4 to 8 weeks or something. And yeah, then I'm gonna have a renewed passport. But right now, I'm in the 1/3 of Americans who don't have a passport, which is crazy. Actually, let me look that up. Okay, yeah, so, so it's 40%, which is crazy. Yeah, 40% of Americans don't have passports. Oh my god, it's 46%. 51%? Wait, hold on. I keep reading the little summaries on DuckDuckGo. Oh my god, can I show this? Yeah, so many websites just like say your address now. I just needed to make sure we're good here. Yeah, 51% of Americans don't have passports, so I'm actually in the majority there. I'm like you. I'm like most Americans who don't have passports, but I'm like most Americans, most of which don't have. I don't know how to say that sentence. I'm like most Americans. And anyway, yeah, so that was it. I walked home. It was super normal. I had thrown away my blank checks. Whenever I want to throw away a piece of paper that's important and that, like, would be dangerous if somebody were to take it out of my trash, something I always like to do is I like to just soak it in water. Like, I just put it under the tap and I just soak it in water, and then I, like, crumple it up until it turns into, like, a bunch of wet little paper pulp, and then I put that in the trash, because that seems like almost functionally identical to, like, burning it. Like, you can't, that is not good paper anyway. Like, once the paper is wet, it's not good paper anymore, I feel like. And maybe that's a little worse than burning it, but I feel like it's definitely better than, like, shredding it. Like, I think the whole point about shredding paper, and even if you get one of those little nice shredders that does it into, like, little squares instead of strips that can just easily be put together, is because of the convenience, right? You could just shred a whole bunch of papers over and over, right? And it's super easy. And it's, like, secure enough to where you don't really have to worry about it. But, you know, if I feel like, for me, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have so many papers to where I'm going to need to own a shredder unless I'm doing, like, some crazy fraud or something, you know? So, like, I feel like just in those one-off scenarios, why own a shredder, which is a little insecure. when you could just like wet your paper and then kind of crumple it up a little bit and then put it in the trash, because then it's just, it might as well, like, who's gonna, like, unless the information's on the paper, then I'll just do it a little more careful. But like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to try and update my Minecraft server now, because my Minecraft server has been down for like 2.5 months, which is crazy. It's the longest it's ever been down, and it feels a little degenerative, because I bet a lot of people think, oh, I guess that server's over now. Which the entire point of the server is to never be down. Like, I'm going to be setting up pretty soon, when I got the time, I'm going to be setting up like AWS, like Glacier backups, just so that the server doesn't shut down. But yeah, luckily the backups have been on my NAS server, so like, you know, they're scrubbed, it's like good data, so it's gonna be fine. But yeah, I'm gonna set up some cloud backups respectfully. I need to eat my chocolate. Me when I talk for 20 minutes and I don't even eat my chocolate. Oh my god, look, this ripped. Look, that's so sad. That's so weird. Weird, it's gotta be from when I like threw it onto the bed and then it like tore a little bit. That's strange. It's the 18th of December. Did something go wrong with my thing? Like, the chocolate was a little in there. Like, did something like I think I may have put that under my stack of clothes or something. And it's like a ice skate, I think, with like some stuff coming out of the top of it, which kind of implies that it's some sort of decapitated, like, does decapitated exclusively refer to heads? Oh, really? It's just a head thing. I see. What's the... Oh, there's a term for it. When you cut off someone's limb. Term for when you cut off limb. Oh, amputation. God, I'm an idiot. Ugh. Now the joke's not funny, because now you know I was going to use the wrong word, but it looks like somebody's, which sort of implies that somebody's like leg was cut off. Like, I don't know what those little things coming out of the top of the boot are. Like, that's very strange, but yeah. You know, yesterday I was hanging out with my buddy a little bit. I mentioned it in yesterday's video. And, you know, 2 days ago I talked about how that thumbnail was my one time, but the thumbnail actually ended up being kind of okay and interesting. You know, it's definitely one of my lesser effort thumbnails, but it's definitely not the thumbnail I spent the least time on 2 days ago. But that yesterday's thumbnail, like, that was for sure, that one was my one time. And I think that's against the one time rule, so maybe I just broke the rule immediately after. But, like, for real, yesterday's thumbnail just sucks and is so lazy. Like, it's fine. I try to do some, like, Rothko thing, but I think it's sort of, maybe a little, I think it's a little, bad faith and sort of mean to, have, because the cool thing about Rothko's paintings and the cool thing about Rothko's sculptures is that they're so surface level, very simple and basic, and you're like, oh, I could do that, which is the case for a lot of sort of, abstract art. Is that what Rothko makes? Is it not like abstract? No, abstract expressionism is all the paint everywhere. But does he do minimalist painting? Hold on. Okay. Wikipedia describes him as an abstract painter. Okay. So I was correct when describing him as abstract. But anyway, you know, I tried doing sort of a, but the whole, you know, the whole point about a Rothko painting is well, I don't want to talk about what the point is, because I'm not Mark, right? But, you know, the thing that's cool about Rothko paintings is you think it's so simple, and then you get closer and you look at it, and you're like, man, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, it's like obvious that there was a lot of effort put into this painting. And, you know, from my perspective, that's cool, considering how, like, first take simple it looks. And then you look at it and it's interesting, right? But the thing was that with yesterday's thumbnail, it is just the first part of that. Like, it's actually uninteresting. And it's actually kind of, like, I think it's kind of gross to make a sort of weird Rothko parody thumbnail. Or, like, you know, like I think it's weird to do like a Rothko parody and then have the parody like have no respect whatsoever in the form of the art. You know what I mean? Like the whole point of it is that there's a lot of hidden depth that you wouldn't immediately realize. But like, sure, I did some like noise spread, like I did some noise spread on the blocks, right? And I put some 0.5 blur on there. But that, you know, they call that, you know, they're calling that the Leo classic. You know, I just, you know, you just do that if you want to have a little interesting depth and you don't want to just have an obvious Gaussian blur as a sort of color square or like a rectangle or like a shadow or something. You just put some noise spread on it to make it like a little more unique, right? But it's just bothersome because like I don't even know, I don't know what I'm saying. It just feels bad. Like it feels bad that I did a Rothko parody and it feels a little like gross. The fact that I like there was no respect for the cool part of his paintings, in my opinion, in the thumbnail. Like the whole thing was like how like the whole thing was very sort of stupid and like silly. And I think it's, you know, historically I'm not very good at parody. You know, I've done a couple parodies of like album arts I like, and I think one of them was okay. I think one of them is okay. But the other three were like kind of simple, and I think frankly it's kind of lazy. Like I feel like parodies sort of deserve. Is parody even the right word? Does parody have to be sort of like a funny sort of thing? What's like a good faith version of parody? That's not how I should. This is, you know, this is a ChatGPT question. What's a good faith version of parody? Pastiche? That's crazy. I've never heard of this before in my life. Is that a word I should know? Pastiche. I've heard it before, but I haven't I didn't know what it meant, and I sort of just contextually sort of. Oh man, that feels kind of. Excuse my language. That feels kind of shitty because I feel like in the past I've used the word parody when I should have been using the word pastiche. That sucks. That's gonna be one of those when they're writing about my work in the future. They're gonna be like, you know, when he said parody here, he didn't mean it in a bad faith way. He meant pastiche, but he just didn't know pastiche. Like he didn't know about that word. Oh man, that sucks. That's embarrassing. God. Anyway, I've done a few pastiches. Hold on. God, yeah, it is pastiches. Okay. I've done a few pastiches of other works of art, and I feel like it just sucks because I think if you're doing a pastiche, it's got to be like you've really got to put a lot of effort into like making it as respectful and as sort of cool as possible because otherwise it seems like you're just doing a parody. Oh, okay, you know, that's a good usage of like the sort of difference between the two terms. But anyway, like I feel like when you're doing something like that, you've really got to be as respectful as possible, and it sucks because I feel like in the past whenever I've done something like that, it's always like, you know, always a little lazy on my end, and it's not as if I'm like trying to be bad faith, but it's just like it feels bad because it's like, you know, maybe I'm not being respectful to Rothko because I'm thinking to myself like, oh, I kind of want to have an easy thumbnail. What's an easy thing that's still like a little interesting? Oh, I could do like a pastiche of Rothko's work. But I feel like a pastiche shouldn't be like, should be crazy high effort, you know, like I feel like it should really just try to be as respectful as possible, and the way to channel that respect would be through effort, and I think that, you know, I just didn't do it there. So I formally apologize for yesterday's thumbnail, and today's thumbnail probably isn't going to be a lot better, but it's going to be better than yesterday's for sure. Like God, sorry guys, at least I know about the word pastiche. Oh, it's so embarrassing. I didn't know what that was, considering how much I use it. Bye.